I think everybody knows that when we started Spike Camp, our primary mission was to provide a place and a means to support and promote all of our conservation group partners, like the Wild Sheep Foundation and its chapters. And then one of the ways we can do it is by providing access to our platform for not just the board, but for all the members of your association and your group, and give you guys a place to deliver your message, and then try to give you some exposure to the membership in a live stream format. And tonight we're closing out our segments on a series of segments called Sheep Camp. This is the 6th episode, and tonight we have some of the top dogs of the Wild Sheep Foundation of Alberta. We got Matt Mellon, Paul Chambers, and Mike Smith. So I think what we'll do is maybe I'll just kind of go around the horn. We can start with Matt, and you can maybe give us a little bio on yourself, and we'll go around the horn and then talk a little bit about Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta.
Yeah, you bet. Matt Mellon. I'm currently the president for Wild Sheep Alberta. I live in Red Deer, Alberta. I've been a paramedic for the last 22 years, run my own business as well, and volunteer for Wild Sheep. So just a little bit about me.
Nice. Now, a little side note, I do know your father, who's a pretty active personality, and not only in Wild Sheep Alberta, but also in hunting and trapping in general. So we're going to get him on here one of these nights as well. So I've definitely know your family. So Paul, how about you? Tell us about you.
Paul Chambers, I live in Hinton, Alberta, the Northern Director for Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta. I work as a wildlife monitor, basically a bush bodyguard. And yeah, that's it. I was in construction for 18 years before that. And that's kind of how I spend all my time when I'm not working or doing wild sheep stuff. I'm in the bush.
Right on. And a lot of that time spent in BC, as we know, right? Doing
Just
the bodyguard thing out here.
Just this year for the first time. It's our first time actually being in BC for work. And it doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. So it's good.
That's cool. And Mike Smith.
You bet. Thanks for having us, guys. Mike Smith. I'm the Southern Director with Wild Sheep Alberta and the Projects Committee Chair. So that's basically my full-time job. My actual full-time job is I work in forestry for a utility out here in Alberta, keeping the power lines clear of trees and preventing wildfires and stuff like that, keeping the power on. And then I've got a little cavy of horses as well that keep me busy, as well as some cattle raising here and there. But like I said, most of my time is pretty much wild sheep stuff. Is same as Paul and Matt goes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved off and on over the years in a lot of volunteer organizations, and it's amazing how the hours stack up behind the scenes and your evenings and weekends and stuff. It's definitely time consuming for sure. So, well, that's great, guys. Can we maybe we'll just talk a little bit about the Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta. Tell us a little bit about the group, how many members, a little bit about what you guys are up to, and then maybe give us an update on some of the projects that you're working on. And I'll probably intervene or interject some questions as we go. And if there's some members on that have questions, they usually just type them in on the sidebar, and then Blake can pick them up and read them to you as we go. So I don't know if who wants to go first, but I'll leave it up to you guys to argue over it.
Sure, I'll give a little bit of a brief history on Wild Sheep Alberta. I think it was founded in 99 officially, with just some fellows. They used to have meetings in their kitchens, and some of these guys are still pretty passionate, and we see them quite a bit. Through the years, it's been everything. It's been translocations of wild sheep to other states and provinces. It's been prescribed burns, Lots of work with our government on regulating our wild sheep and ensuring that they're here for future generations. Yeah, I guess wild sheep currently, we are a bunch of new blood. I think you're kind of seeing that with a lot of these volunteer organizations. There's a big upstep of younger, I guess, volunteers. But currently, I would say our mainstay on projects is going to, circle around habitat enhancement, predators, and disease mitigation. So we can get into that a little bit in more detail, but yeah, my big want for joining Wild Sheep Foundation a few years back there was for habitat enhancement, to get some of these bigger prescribed burns off the ground, see a way to keep things sustainable for the population growth of wild sheep. And I think through doing that and pursuing that, it's, you get an education in it if you're at all passionate. You do your research and you read articles and things like that. And I just think that the more habitat enhancement that we can do, and specifically with burns, I think it benefits the sheep in not just having fresh grass on the mountain, but a lot of these areas are so choked off with conifer that it provides quite an opportunity for predators to ambush the sheep. And so the more clear line of sight that these sheep can have, and the better access they have to water and to be able to move from mountain to mountain, I think you'll see a lot more or a lot less mortality in our sheep. So that's kind of been my passion with it all. And of course, everything you sit in this seat and everything else kind of pours its way on through. Alberta really hasn't dealt with it a whole lot, but disease is at the forefront of wild sheep sustainability North America wide. We did have a outbreak this winter down in the the southwest part of our province in the Sheep River Sanctuary. I think that was once again, it's a big eye-opening just how lethal some of these diseases can be to our wild sheep. So that's been a major focus for us this year, is pushing forward some regulation maybe that would include not allowing domestic sheep in certain areas of our province. Some of these sensitive areas where our bighorns come down in the winter time. So
it was Movi, Matt? Movi?
It was, yeah, it was.
So
no, go ahead.
So here in BC, I was just going to say, here in BC, as you know, we've got that a pretty big project with Wild Sheep Society of BC, kind of an ongoing sort of mission for the test and removal, especially in the Fraser Canyon. Are you guys doing the same sort of thing, helicopters and all that?
So we got, Kyle Stelter will probably hate me for saying this, but we got really lucky. I think they euthanized a total of 6 sheep, and probably another up to 12 died naturally of the amoeba. And so that kind of launched a fairly aggressive testing and sampling of herd health of our sheep in the Sheep River Sanctuary. And so I think of the 88 sheep that were in a herd, when they were doing the sampling, they managed to sample 43, I believe, used lambs and rams. I think we collared 5 rams just to kind of follow them through their summertime foray. And happy to say that everything came back negative. Swabs came back negative. We also sampled for their blood serum. So any antibodies that they would have had if they had a previous exposure to amoeba would have showed up in their blood serum, and it didn't. So all fairly good things. as far as having a Moby outbreak. It sounds like this, this smaller band of rams just basically followed the Sheep River down, and then came in contact with some domestic sheep somewhere. The virus was said to be of a novel strain, so it's not a really known strain to wild sheep. So as crummy as it is, all fingers kind of point to that this was a domestic transmission onto wild sheep, and it didn't come from say BC. It is a possibility that our sheep could get infected from BC sheep just from how far they do travel, but I would say that all the evidence doesn't support that at all. So, which is good news, because I just hate it. I hate that we manage our problems, and it's killing our wild sheep, right? A couple times this summer we've had wild sheep come out and be in contact with domestic sheep, and the government has had to go out and euthanize them just in case, and I do not like that. But I mean, it's the lesser of two evils. But my point is, I guess it's a terrible management strategy. I think if we're killing our wild sheep.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it becomes more of a reactive response than a proactive response, and it's sad, but until it gets more exposure to the public and to the ag and ranching community, and just more political awareness, I think this is going to continue, right? It sucks. I mean, you look at like the test and remove project that's happening in BC. It's kind of a heartfelt heartbreak mission, right? You go out there and you test these sheep, and if it's positive, they go down, and it just sucks. It really sucks, especially in areas where you've got a lower population, and you've worked so hard to build that population up and nurture it, and then all of a sudden something like that happens. Same thing with blue tongue, right? We had that occur in southern BC, and it just about wiped out that herd completely. So yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah, disease is a terrible thing to really try and deal with, and it's really hard to control, especially when, like you said, when you don't have the farmers and the ranchers and everybody on board with it yet. So one of the biggest things is trying to educate people, and how do you take that gap? Because we can take a film, like Transmission, beautifully done, really hits home. It's very educational. It's designed and was built around to inform the non-hunter, to inform the people, because we can sit here and we can send films to ourselves all day and just try to convince ourselves, but everybody that's around wild sheep, they understand. They're getting that information out there. They know. It's how do we expand that reach from inside our group to people that generally have no idea. And that's I find is the trickiest part about what Wild Sheep BC is doing, what we're trying to do, is that how do we involve everyone? How do we get it out to ranchers, and how do we get them to care? Because if it costs them a whole bunch of money, they're not going to do it. And
well, exactly. And at the end of the day, the animals that are going down are the wild sheep, right? So
yeah,
it's not a direct impact, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
You touched on it.
You're going to be upset about it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah. There's a statement out there, passion starts in the wallet, right?
Yeah.
and if it impacts your wallet, you're going to pay attention. But that, the film transmission and any of the awareness sort of campaigns that Wild Sheep Foundation and all of its chapters and affiliates put out, it's all helping. And so that's good news. Can you tell us a little bit about the membership? Like what's the size of the Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta membership now?
I do believe we are, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're at 540 life members, somewhere around that area. Last I had heard, and I think our general membership kind of hovers right around 1,000.
Right on. Have you guys seen a significant increase in membership over the last few years?
Massive.
Yeah, you bet.
I'd say within the last 2 years, well over 200 new life members.
Well over 200 life members in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what's the prices on memberships? Like I know, yeah, I know them, but let's put them out there for the group, for people to hear, because it's surprisingly affordable, and there really
Yeah.
is not a better way to spend your money.
I think our yearly membership is $30 a year. And I mean, it's really cheap. I don't even know if we've been talking about it actually, because it doesn't even cover really the cost of us sending you a magazine 4 times a year.
It's never been adjusted since the inception of the foundation. It's always
It hasn't been
$30.
adjusted. It stayed the same. So, I mean, that we might have an increase coming in that. Well, we will, because we're losing money, and that's not the point of what we're trying to
exactly.
do. Our 3-year, I believe, is $75 for a 3-year membership. And then our life membership we had was $500, and must have been 4 or 5 years ago. We bumped it up to $750 for a life membership. And then we have our new Skyline membership that we just brought out, which is $2,000. And I believe we have 15 Skyline members, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, certainly. I think you got some room for a price increase there, but it's kind of a double-edged sword too, right? You push the price up too high, and you affect the incoming members. But
we get a lot of good feedback on those magazines too, like for that price, and even if it bumps up to 45 or 50, I'm not sure what we're doing, but those 4 magazines you get a year, they're good quality. There's we have a lot of great contributors, articles, and yeah, I mean, certainly that's a really, really good benefit, getting 4 of those a year. You actually feel like you're getting your dollar's worth.
You know what? And there still is a place for, print media, digital and print media that's written up and lots of pictures and stories and articles. And that's the beauty of this space that we're in, is there's so much content out there with individuals and their stories and their history and hunting stories, of course. So no, it's great. Awesome. Well, let's turn over a little bit and start with some projects. Talk about what you guys are up to in Alberta with projects. And I know, Mike, that's kind of your wheelhouse. Maybe you could kind of give us a breakdown on some of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. We've had a busy few years on projects, and as a projects chair, my biggest frustration is I'm not the most creative guy. So I feel like I manage them pretty well, but the creation of them is what we always look for, and that's when our membership comes in, right? We're always looking for ideas and areas where we have 1,000, like Paul said, 1,000 members out there, and thousands more people out in the mountains that are seeing maybe stuff that could benefit wild sheep. So we're always looking for ideas. I'll put that out first, but over the past few years, we've got our kind of annual projects, such as we sponsor an ungulate enhancement program with local trappers in the mountains, where we offset costs for getting out there and trapping wolves, and the more success they have in that with predator management, we do offset those costs for them, as well as our annual cougar program, where the same thing, we offset the cost of houndsmen getting into hard to reach mountain areas, and pay for their supplies, their dog food, and even vet bills, stuff like that, for the efforts that they make to get out there and harvest what we feel are sheep killing cats. So those are the two that what did we have this year, Paul? We had, I think, 12 cats harvested, and
I think
sheep zones.
12 or 13, yeah.
Yeah.
That we paid out.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Now, just quick question on that, Mike. So if you're looking at the predators and sort of rating or scaling them on, what does more damage, I guess it's sort of area dependent, but is it wolves doing more damage than cougars, or I guess that's kind of hard to tell. What's your guys' position on that?
They're all bad.
It's opinions, right?
Yeah.
They're all bad.
It depends who you ask, right? Like the trappers are going to tell you that the wolves do more damage, and the houndsmen are going to tell you that the cats do more damage. And different biologists will tell you different things too, and it does truly depend on the area. Matt, do you have something on that? Looks like you're
I would just say the evidence that we have seen, what Mike might be talking about, our collaring project there, how many collared rams do we have now, Mike?
I believe we have 56.
Yeah, so out of the 56, I'm going to say annually, probably 3 to 4 of those go down, and it's a cougar kill every time. I don't know that we've had one that's been a wolf yet, have we, Mike?
Nope.
No.
So I would say in where we were doing our cougar study, or sorry, our sheep study, I would say that the cougars are. It's surprising how much they kill, to be honest.
Yeah. So just one more question, and as far as the projects, and then we'll let you continue on with the rest of the update, Mike. Where do you guys get a lot of your funding? Like, what's the breakdown? Do you obviously do some fundraising yourself? Wild Sheep Foundation, I'm sure, is involved. Yeah. How are you set with government programs and things like that?
The majority of our project funding comes from the Minister's Special License Program. And we've had great success with a lot of projects over the years, and a lot of that money, has been utilized from those tags being sold down in Reno, and obviously the general auction tag or general raffle tags up here in Alberta. But the majority of that funding for the bigger projects has come directly from that. And that's historically been through Alberta Fish and Game Association.
And it's big money, and it's getting bigger every year at those auctions, right? Like, what were the numbers from this past year?
What did it go for? 420, I think.
In Reno this year, I don't think it broke 4. It was 340, I think.
Was it 340?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
That was Saturday. I've been down for like 4 days already, man. That's hard.
But I believe the mule deer tag went for over 200,000 in Alberta.
Yeah, the mule deer tag went for 220, and I believe our sheep tag went for 380 or 385. Okay. I can't remember. So I had a bet going.
I can look it up. I have it.
Oregon thought that they were going to be the top dog, and I think we beat them by 5,000. And I can't remember if it was 385.
And I think
that's awesome.
A big boost to that was the transition we made in those tags, allowing it to be year round. And
375 I know for this year,
375.
Yeah,
maybe I was just dreaming and wishing.
Next year's for something.
Yeah, there you go. And Matt can speak to this better than I can about there's been a lot of talk out there about it being year round, but I know there are some benefits to that as well. And Matt was the one that was telling me about that. He can talk to that about just the presence of hunters being out there.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Matt. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh no, that's okay. If you know what, having a extended season on our Minister Special License tags just kind of brought us up to being on par with I guess what you got to look at is we're competing against every other jurisdiction that has wild sheep and that has a governor's tag or has a minister's tag. When you go to Reno, every one of those people is trying to sell their tag for the top dollar. So one of the things that we looked at years ago, and it took some poking and prodding from some of our membership to me, but it wasn't until I really got down there and experienced Reno that you just looked at it, you're like, yeah, you're at an auction and you're competing against everybody else. But yeah, our tag didn't offer a lot of exclusivity for these people that were paying top dollar for it. So we were able to work with the government to make some changes for both the auction tag holder and for the resident raffle license holder. And so APOS had a pretty big hand in the pie there too, and so yeah, the tags are now, they run year round. So I think the only one that you're really going to look at maybe hunting year round would be a Bighorn Sheep. The rest of them aren't going to have antlers.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that's cool.
I think there was some concern over people saying that there's going to be too much harassment of wild sheep, etc. And I would say that it's probably going to be quite the opposite, right? Like, the general public maybe thinks that we're running around with knives in our teeth and try to kill anything that moves. But everybody here would understand that when you're hunting wild sheep, you're probably 800,000 plus yards away. You're not disturbing the sheep. You're looking for something very specific.
Yeah.
The payoff for that is that you're also in these areas during times where you can hunt wolves, you can hunt cougars. And to touch on what Mike had said, that there's a lot of evidence that goes into what they call the human shield effect, where humans displace predators a lot more than they displace, things like ungulates.
Right.
National parks are a great, example of that. So where you have elk bedding on Main Street and not a whole lot of wolves and cougars up and down the street. So I think that, some of that will die down. And I mean, obviously, anytime there's change, you're going to get people coming out from underneath the rocks to throw stones. So,
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we do rely on those funds quite a bit, and our other conservation partners. We have Alberta Conservation Association here in Alberta. We utilize their funds from time to time, as well as national with all the programs that they have going on as well. So
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. So yeah, what other projects you guys got going there, Mike?
Yeah, so our biggest one we kind of touched on it a bit, but we've collared I believe it's up to 50, just over 50 sheep right now. I'd have to check my numbers, but all kind of across southern Alberta, the majority of them south of Highway 1 and the Bow River, with a couple odd ones, well, one less after the spring, but that was a cougar kill. But yeah, the purpose of that has really been, and it started with just kind of the untangling of those rams and seeing they're all young rams between about 2 and 5 years old, that were collared, and to study their movements and see, we keyed in on that area to see exactly where they're moving, especially east, and looking at domestic disease prevention and just kind of figuring out what some patterns are, and where these these forays that these young rams are taking, where it's taking them, and maybe areas that we can key in on, and the government can key in on as far as priority domestic testing and maybe implementing mitigation strategies. So we've had a couple pilot projects as far as mitigation on that, where we've identified, or someone's identified, whether it be the government or a citizen, areas where there's been potential contact or is a strong potential for contact. Obviously the best mitigation strategy is to remove those domestics from that area, but that's not always possible. So we move into other strategies, double fencing, which is still, again, we call it a pilot because it's not our favorite choice, but it's expensive, it's tough, and it's not entirely 100% mitigation, right? So or elimination of the risk. But it's been really interesting to see some of that data, and we don't have direct access, but the biologists provide us some of that data that we're able to see and learn from. And it certainly, with the big scare we had with the Amovi outbreak in Sheep River this year, it certainly proves that all that money that's gone towards that, whether it's our own fundraise money or money coming from the MSL tags, is going to a really, really good place, because it was kind of not a if but a when scenario, and it we really did escape that. Touch wood, all things considered, it was a big scare, but hopefully we're out of the woods for that outbreak, and we can, a bit of a wake up call for us and the general public, and hopefully ranchers and farmers around there. So we're also funding a domestic disease testing program in coordination with the government as well, and a lot of that's going to these big producers, and again, a lot of it's education, like Paul mentioned earlier. And we're not coming here, and if your sheep tests or goat tests positive for Amovi, we're not going to kill it, we're not going to euthanize it. Like, we just need to figure out where these are, and again, create mitigation strategies for it. So Yeah, but most of our stuff revolves around domestic disease at this point, and rightfully so. I believe it is our biggest threat to our wild sheep for sure. I can keep rambling unless you want to touch on something there, Matt.
Well, we can't. We're not really allowed to say the word fire in Alberta right now.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say,
it's a little
that was my
touchy.
next point with Evan Thomas, but
Yeah, but just the little that I know about your group, it's very much like the rest of the chapters and affiliates. There's so much more direct impact in a positive way on all species of wildlife, right? Like I know you guys are involved or have been involved at least with some of the wildlife overpasses, for example, right? And it's not really something just for sheep; it's for any animal, right?
we haven't been directly involved with the wildlife overpasses, but we're trying to. And
Mhm.
we've keyed in on areas where we've had conversations with Alberta Transportation about areas that we feel and our memberships approached us about, this is where we feel a project could, money would be well spent. So we have been having conversations with Alberta Transportation about that. But yeah, as far as the wildlife overpasses that have gone in, we haven't had any direct
Okay.
contribution to that. But go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, we did have a little bit of, we did some wildlife fencing project down in southern Alberta by the Crow's Nest Pass to try and keep some of our bighorn sheep off. I can't remember, did they install a underpass at the time? There's like a little bit of an underpass there, I thought, but the sheep weren't utilizing it because it wasn't strategically put.
That was before my time.
They might
Yeah.
have cleared out, just from my knowledge, they might have cleared out a little more between where it crosses the Crow's Nest Lake there, but there's not an underpass directly.
I know we had
wildlife.
talked.
And maybe they were looking at funding one. I can't remember.
We had talked about extending it.
It's been a while since we've had anything to do down there in the Crow's Nest Pass with wildlife fencing. And like Mike said, him and I have jumped on a few meetings with Alberta Transportation trying to get the wheels turning on some of these projects that are sitting there kind of waiting for funding and just waiting for some resource allocation to them. And so that's kind of just an ongoing thing at this time, I guess we'll call it.
Sure. So as far as the bighorn population in Alberta goes, what do the numbers look like? What's the trajectory? Is it moving up in a positive way, down, stable? What's happening there?
I think our numbers are excellent. It's been a few years since we were able to do a sheep survey. So usually annually, Wild Sheep Foundation will fund a helicopter survey in one of the 5 SMAs in Alberta. So we weren't able to do that. I can't remember how many years ago was that. 2 or 3 years ago when they crashed. 2 years ago there was a crash. They were doing a moose survey, I think, elsewhere in the province. So it suspended all wildlife surveys for the time being. But
I think we've been 4 years without a survey.
It's been a little bit, but so truthfully the numbers, like solid numbers, I'm not really sure right now, but you get a lot of good data out of these wildlife surveys, and one of them is your lamb recruitment, which is vitally important, as you guys out of BC probably know. Anytime you have poor lamb recruitment, you immediately are going to want to know why, and disease being the biggest threat, and it could be predators too. Eagles, wolverines, things like that. They're really tough on lambs. But to my point, our lamb recruitment has always been really well. I believe around 40%. So for every 100 ewes, there's 40 lambs. So I think that's an excellent number. So yeah, I would say the only thing, the biggest thing that I always say, to increase our sheep numbers, or if you're looking at, we don't need more sheep, we just need, better trophy quality it all comes back to habitat.
Mhm.
I think habitat is the engine that pushes that train or pulls that train, and sheep numbers and trophy quality are kind of a caboose on that train, and wherever that train is going, that caboose follows. So if we decide not to do anything about habitat, I would say that we would be status quo, right? You're not going to see what you see is what you get as far as trophy quality and sheep population. But if we want to see changes in that, I'm pretty firm on. I think that is habitat improvements.
As one of our
good point.
directors, as one of our directors says, it comes down to groceries, and he says, look at the numbers and the size of sheep that were harvested out of the Catamount area, well before the reclamation of the mines came, and then look at the size of the sheep that were coming out of the Catamount area after reclamation started, and it's a massive increase in what trophy quality. And it really does come down to groceries, and the best way to develop and increase those groceries is habitat enhancement. And that's primarily through burning.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought up Catamount, Mike, because that was on my list of things I wanted to kind of talk about. So I don't know who wants to lead it on that, but if maybe you could. We don't know much about it out here in BC, and I'm sure it's a real passionate topic for anybody in Alberta who's involved in the sheep community. But maybe you guys could give us a little background on the history and what's happened there and what's going on and what the future looks like for the Catamount situation.
Yeah, that's Paul's kitchen.
Yeah. Catamount is about 45 minutes south of Hinton. And it's been a mining community for years. It started out as a little mining community, mountain park, long time ago. Gradually moved into, there was 2 mines out there. There was Greg River Mine and there was Cardinal River operations. So Greg River started out, they bought, sold. Cardinal River kind of took over a bunch of their stuff. They sold to Teck. Eventually they expanded into this new Cheviot area, and they were actually pushing to extend again into another area called Red Cap. With coal prices down in the dumps a few years ago and everything happening, they decided it wasn't feasible. It was too far away for them to haul everything from there to the plant. So they filed for closure. And now, after I think 60 years of active open pit mining in there, they are starting reclamation on a lot of their stuff. And there's certain areas of Greg River Mine that have been reclaimed already that are almost set to go back, but those pieces had a land designation for them done. The tricky part about where Catamount's at now, and I guess a little backstory, Catamount's been kind of the mecca for sheep hunting in Alberta. It has, some of the largest rams in Alberta have come out of there. I would say most of the largest rams in Alberta have come out of there. There has been a few down south, Waterton Ram and different ones, but it was, I do believe, the largest ram, or I think it's number 3 or number 4 now, came out of Catamount, but it was the biggest for a while. And am I right there, Matt?
The largest hunter killed ram was out of Catamount, yeah.
Yeah.
Largest Alberta ram was actually out of the Sheep River Sanctuary.
Yes. Yeah. Hunter. And I mean, there's still some decent quality in there. A number of years ago, there was a 194 that came out of Catamount. That's a big ram. And I won't say where in there because it was in kind of a difficult spot, but there's definitely good quality sheep in there still, and there always has been in there. They will continue to be. The biggest thing is that now they want to take all the land around Catamount and kind of give it back, or they're not sure. They're looking for public input. They want, user groups to say, what do you guys want? And so you got, the quadding associations and stuff like that. They're like, we want to go quad on top of the mountains. I mean, who doesn't? It's beautiful. I get it. You've got people that want to drive and campers in there and go camp in the mountains. You've got all these different people that want to recreate, and there is different, bands and stuff that want to hunt and people that want access to hunt in there. But I mean, we're looking at this as as a whole saying like, okay, if Catamount goes back to free for all, knowing what everybody knows now, it would be just absolutely detrimental to the entire space. And it's a very sensitive place. We have a biologist by the name of Beth McCollum that we've been working with very closely for years. And she's been the lead biologist out there for 50 years. There is not a person that knows the sheep better than Beth. We call her Bighorn Beth because she's absolutely incredible. So we're working with her and a few other agencies and groups. Talked to Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance. We talked to Ducks Unlimited because there's Harlequin ducks that are in there and they're, a threatened species. There's goats that come through there. There's grizzly bears. There's marmots. There's wolverines. There's everything. It's a very, very thriving atmosphere. And basically what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, how do we do it? What do we do? There's designated access trails that we've been able to hunt the whole time, foot access and horseback. Now that's not everybody's cup of tea, but we're getting into things where you're never going to please everybody. And ultimately we're the Wild Sheep Foundation. Our goal is to protect the sheep on the mountain. And so, our kind of stance as a board has always been to do just that. And, preserve that hunting heritage. If everything goes back to the way that it was and it opens up to a big general zone, with the amount of access and roads, even if there's reclamation, you can do your best job at reclamation. You can't put a mountain back. And it's
exactly.
And the landscape has changed. And these animals have been protected in that area for the last 50 years. They don't know. There's no generational knowledge for those animals. Those ewe groups and those lambs and those rams will come to those ewes that will stay there as long as they don't get displaced. And it could be a very, very detrimental thing is, big herds of elk. And it's just last thing we ever want to see out there is a slaughter because it'll be the end of an era out there.
Yeah.
And it's something that we need to really work hard as the forefront of our mind to protect and ensure that it's done properly, even if it's just leaving the existing mine boundaries up and creating a conservation designation or a wildlife sanctuary or something around that to that state or to that extent, and just leave it the way that it is. It's working fine, and I don't think we should mess with it.
So, Paul, what's the hunting access now? Is it draw tag for sheep and other species in that area, or is it open over the counter?
Right now, it is 6-point elk. Obviously, you can't hunt grizzly bears. Mule deer are draw there. Whitetails are open, and it's over the counter sheep tags.
438 is lottery, though, correct?
437. There's the
438 is a lottery in
438 is
lottery draw in November for late.
Yeah. Lottery draw in November for 438. 437 is a draw zone. That's in that red cap area where they were talking about expanding. Haven't been able to hunt that in years. And I doubt any of us will ever be lucky enough to draw that tag with the amount of points it's getting right now. There's also a 410 archery tag. But yeah, like majority of the area around the mines is all general bighorn.
So what can the general public do to try to push this the right direction? Is there anything we can get involved with as far as communication with politicians?
There's meetings. I feel like that we're trying to do our best job at tactfully approaching this. We have some time. The reclamation is going to take 10 years, and then they have to monitor it for 10 more years before anything will ever happen. But we just, like you were talking about earlier, instead of being reactive, we're trying to be very proactive at this point in coming up with a land designation or land classification, and how we can kind of assist or aid the government into making their decisions. They've been really good at inviting various stakeholders and groups to the conversation, because there's nothing in writing that protects this at all or has anything. So it's kind of a difficult situation. As far as the public can go, I mean, they can always feel free to reach out to us at Wild Sheep Alberta. They can, reach out to other, different user groups, be it Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance or, the Alberta Conservation Association or the Alberta Fish and Game Association. All of these user groups, if they have questions, there are people there that they can, talk to or direct them to us or whatever they need to do. But I think the biggest thing, if somebody cares about it, is to join these groups that are actually fighting for it.
Exactly.
Have to say, because strength is in numbers, and the more people we have, the more voices we hear, the more opinions we get, allows us to make a better and well-informed decision on it. So it's important for us to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for the update on that. Just curious, what do you guys do for fundraising events and stuff? Like, Wild Sheep Society BC has their big conference. I know you guys have an event. Maybe you could share with us, with the timing and what those events look like, what other things you have going on.
Well, we've got our 25th anniversary coming up this year. And historically, our big fundraiser banquet has been held in Red Deer. They since sold where we were having it. They're turning it into a casino. So we had to move. So last year was an adjustment for us. We took it out of Red Deer for the first time. And was it ever?
Yep.
Yeah, first time
I
ever.
believe so. And it was scary because we have a
Yeah.
very loyal following.
Yeah.
That loves
we
going to
were
Red
scared.
Deer every March.
And it was all new, and it was a lot of planning, because when you're at a venue for so long, it's just like, okay, same as last year. You just kind of hit repeat, right? And to move the entire thing to a new city was absolutely crazy. Ended up being our largest banquet we've ever had yet, which was, I believe, 827 people.
Wow, big
We
number.
We followed Wayne Newton on that stage. He was the night before us, and Wild Sheep Alberta was the next night. So
yeah. Nice.
It's pretty good. But
for sure.
that had its issues as well. So this year we're moving it again, and we're going to Calgary. And so this year is going to be the first weekend in March. We are booked at I can't remember the name of it right now. It's escaping me.
It's the new Westin by the airport.
The Westin by the airport in Calgary. Yeah.
And last year at the River Cree in Edmonton, it was a beautiful facility and everything, but it's kind of a wart on the outside of the city. It's kind of, there's no hotels really. If that's sold out, then everything else is a bus ride or a cab away. And there's about 6 hotels within spitting distance of this one. So. Not to mention the airport.
Not to mention the airport and the fact that we can fit 1,200 people in there. So we're going to shoot for 1,000 people this year for our 25th. And we're really excited about that. Details will be coming out, as we kind of get them. We have secured the venue, though, and we have secured the dates. So it is happening. And we're going to try moving it down south there and just see. There's only so many places in Alberta that can hold that capacity of people and feed them. And it's tricky. It is definitely tricky. So, I give a lot of credit to, Jordan and Chelsea and the rest of the Wild Sheep Alberta team that pulled that off last year. It was quite the feat. And I think, for moving venues and everything, yes, there was hiccups and yes, there was issues, but I think overall it went really, really well. We had our largest fundraising year last year as well due to that auction. And I think a lot of that came from, the crew of people and team that we had down in Reno getting, donations and auction items and stuff like that. And so it really is a lot of interworking that goes into it. But I think we got one heck of a team here and we've been doing some really good stuff. So I'm excited to see it kind of continue on. But other than that, we have a few raffles that we put on here and there. They're really good for membership, but the issue that we have with raffles is that money is difficult to spend in Alberta. We have to get approval to spend it, and there's only so many things we can spend it on. And then if we have too much raffle money sitting in an account, the government goes, well, why are you doing another raffle? You have money, because being a profit charitable organization, it's difficult. And we want to make sure that we're spending that money, but we also don't want to waste that money just because we have it, right? We want it to go to something meaningful. We want to put it into a project and have it. So we will have some raffles coming up. We've got some exciting new partners this year that came on for the first time, which is really good. And one of them being Gunworks.
Nice.
Is one of our new biggest sponsor. Actually, they committed a lot to us this year. So I'm really excited to bring them on with their new optic systems and everything that's coming out. So some exciting stuff there, and Schnees and Stone Glacier and all those guys. I was just down at the Ram Rendezvous in Bozeman with all those guys, and yeah, they're excited about it, and they're all coming up. They're all coming up to the banquet, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, these banquets, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's BC, Reno, Alberta. The great news is every one of them is expanding, right? Like BC's moving to Penticton this year because they outgrew the Kamloops facility. Reno, I have not been to Reno yet. We're planning on doing the circuit this year too, and we're kind of the new kids. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And Alberta, we're going to come to your show as well. So
yes,
we're pretty excited about that. And again, you know, it's back to our mission is to just try to drive memberships any way we can, and you know, just getting the awareness out there for all those events is huge. So we'll be promoting the shit out of it with you. And like you touched on, Paul, the partners that care, the conservation partners like Gunworks and Stone Glacier and some of the other groups, you know, we're as a community and as a, just the hunting space in general. There's a lot of companies out there that really have, you know, the ethics behind them, and they're not afraid to put their money where their mouth is. And that's just so cool to be a part of that. Right. So.
And it is, it really is. And it's awesome because, you know, they're catering to their demographic as well, right? One hand washes the other, both hands wash the face. Like and, you know, and we love it. And if we can have that working strong relationship with them, you know, we want to do our best to support them as well in any way we possibly can, because, you know, they deserve it. And they're, like you said, putting their money where their mouth is. So
yeah, cool.
It's really good.
All right. Well, you know, I think unless you guys got any more projects, I think we can put the business side of this interview off to the side.
I'd mention.
All right.
Yeah.
One kind of exciting thing that we just did was we partnered with the Edmonton Zoo. So the Edmonton Zoo has a Bighorn exhibit, and I was there last year, and I was looking around, and it was like, you can adopt this space. And I was like, why isn't the Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta supporting these sheep, right? So what we decided to do as a group was, you know, through this MOV outbreak and everything like that, is we were trying to use that as an educational tool to get outside of our typical demographic. Was that, you know, you go walk through the Edmonton Zoo and you see a Bighorn sheep. They have some ewes, they got some young rams. And when you see that and you look down, there's our QR code. You can scan it. It'll take you. There's information about disease. There's information about, takes you right to your website. So that's one thing that we're kind of excited about, in a way that we kind of utilize to try and, you know, gain some more reach. And so it's super cool. So we've sponsored them for the next 5 years. And so those sheep, and in doing that, we've actually been able to upgrade their enclosure as well. They're getting a bigger space. So they're getting a little more room to kind of run around and play.
Nice.
Which is good. I mean, obviously our mission isn't to have sheep in zoos, but, you know, wild sheep are definitely our priority. But if there is some in there, there's not much we can do about that other than try to make their quality of life as most enjoyable as possible, and update and inform people on what they can do or their part in order to keep wild sheep on the mountain versus in a zoo. So that's something we're really excited about. And another thing is we've got knives for sale still. We've got about 14 of the Mighty knives left that we partnered with Frontiersman Gear. And so those are you can follow it on our socials. Links are in the bios. If anybody wants to buy one of those, they're giving 20% back to Wild Sheep Alberta off of those sales. And as well, you know, Frontiersman Gear is one of our major supporters as well, donating every year to our auction and our youth camp and everything like that. So if anybody wants a Mighty knife, go get one. There's only a few left. And August 12th is our youth camp in Hinton. So we have
cool.
60 kids signed up for that. And we will be doing skeet shooting, archery, rifle training. And we're going to be doing a little blurb on education about MOV as well. So we're going to be showing the transmission film and then kind of talking about, disease and impacts and how that all kind of works. And then our fifth one is going to be our fifth event is going to be more of a kind of a backcountry survival thing that we'll teach them, just kind of what to do when you're outside and stuff. So every year, that's going really good. We're going to continue to try. We've been trying for a couple of years to get a southern camp going, and it just hasn't worked logistically yet, but we're going to work on getting a second youth camp going. And this one's full. It was full in under 24 hours. We had 60 kids signed up.
Wow, that's cool.
And it's 100% free. All money provided by MSL, Minister Special License, pays for a large chunk of that. And then we have just the most amazing sponsors and donors for that as well. It seems like anytime you attach a kid to something, people are just throwing money at you. They're like, yes, get the youth, Yeah, really important to get them out and get them off their phones and get them out and teach them some skills and get them outside.
Exactly.
And get them involved in the outdoors. So a few things
Yeah, for sure.
Proud of that are happening here this summer.
That's awesome. Well, that's cool. Let's talk some fun stuff. Let's talk about bighorn hunting. So when's opener for you guys?
August 25th up here.
August 25th. Okay.
And south of Highway 1, it's September 6th.
Okay. And then how long does that season go?
End of October.
Yeah. End of October.
Yep.
Cool. So these are, the questions I'm going to ask are, they might sound a little dumb because I'm from BC, but there's a lot of members from all over, not just Western Canada, but we have a lot of US members. And I always find it interesting to talk about sheep hunting in different states and provinces and things and find out how it all works, because our system in BC is sort of a mixed bag. For stone sheep, it's pretty much almost all over the counter. For the northern zones, obviously where the stones live, our bighorn and Dall sheep is all done on a draw system. How does it work in Alberta? Is it, I know there's a mix too, right? It's over the counter with some draws. I don't know who wants to field that question, but maybe tell the group here a little bit about that.
Matt, you're up.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, the whole majority of the province is over the counter tags. There's a few zones that are draw only. And then there are some opportunities as well for like late season sheep hunting in some of these areas. But yeah, there's some different regulations throughout the province in just full curl versus 4/5 curl, which I'm not sure if you guys are all full curl over there in BC.
Yeah, so it depends. Like the bighorns have a couple different, there's a couple different programs for that, but like for stone sheep, it's breaks the bridge of the nose or eight years by identifiable annuli. So yeah, I'm curious about that too. So what's full curl definition look like there? Does it have to break the nose or the eye line, or how does that work?
Well, we currently have two different definitions for full curl. I think one is from the base of the horn through the nose, and then the other one, I'm just trying to remember. One is within the regulations, and the other one's within the oh geez, I'm just trying to remember what one's kind of embedded within like the regulations, and the other one is kind of more into wildlife management. So they've used both terms of kind of over the bridge of the nose as well as through that plane from the back of the horn to the front of the guy. So,
but we only have one zone in Alberta that
Is
full curl applies to, and that's 400 down in the farthest southwest corner.
Okay. Interesting. And so you guys, obviously there's going to be a compulsory inspection as well, right? So is that, you have like 30 days after harvest, take it to a CI, or what does that look like?
Just trying to think. I think within 7 days you're supposed to be.
I think it's within 7.
Yeah, within 7 days you got to bring it into a Fish and Wildlife office, and recently they kind of changed. There's only certain Fish and Wildlife offices that you can take them to that specialize in sheep registration. So in that, typical data is collected from them, and I want to say for probably the last 6 or 7 years now, we've been paying to have all those sheep swabbed for a MOBI. So that is part of the compulsory registration when your ram gets plugged. It's getting a nasal swab now too. And so some recent changes, they've adopted the Yukon jig as well. There's been maybe some complaints from some of the biologists that now that the sheep's lower jaw is removed as well as it's caped out, it maybe diminishes the quality of the sample for swabbing for a MOBI, but it is what it is.
Yeah. That's interesting. I guess that's definitely an option, right? That's the place where you can get a real legitimate test, right? If you're doing the CI. So, okay. So in Alberta, how does it work as far as who's allowed to hunt sheep in Alberta? I mean, if I asked Paul and he said it's only Alberta residents and I can go screw myself. So I'm just curious what the actual regulations are for residents of Canada. I know obviously guide outfitter clients can come in from anywhere, pay the money, but
that's basically
is there opportunities?
You're out, buddy. Unless you're paying, you're out.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that answers that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's Alberta resident. You got to be, you got to have your hunter's education. I'm not. You can buy a bighorn tag at 12 years old, same as you can buy a deer tag. There was a couple of young ladies this year. One of them got it with a bow, one of them got it with a rifle. They're 12 years old, and they both killed dandy rams. And they came from some very good, knowledgeable families. But yeah, 12 years old, you can go and you can shoot a bighorn. The only thing is, if you shoot one, you can't shoot one the year after. You got to take a year off.
So you got a 1 year wait period after.
1 year wait period.
Yeah. Interesting. What about so access into Alberta sheep country? Just typical, right? You got boots, horses. I'm sure you can only get so far with ATVs, but do you guys have a transporter system out there at all? Like, can guys fly into lakes and do like what we do out here in BC, or jet boats? Like, is there any kind of I'm just curious how everybody gets there. I know there's a lot of horseback and boots, right?
Look, I'd say mostly horseback and boots for sure. There's some areas in the province guys still will have success on ATVs, and I know there's areas of the province that have done some helicoptering in and jet boats as well. I know there's a couple areas, but not as prominent as BC. You get into that rugged stuff pretty quick, and those rivers get pretty shallow, and the terrain gets pretty wicked. So I'm not sure if those guys have anything to add, but yeah, I mean, predominantly it's boots and horseback.
Yeah, interesting.
E-bikes are becoming a pretty big thing too, to be honest.
They really are.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot more of that, especially in my neck of the woods down, Kananaskis area, and a lot of stuff that's pretty popular with hikers. You're seeing a lot more e-bikes.
I actually couldn't believe that. A couple of years ago, we rode in, and we rode for 10 hours on horseback, and we're setting up camp. It was snowing, sleeting, raining. It was just terrible middle of September. Supposed to be nice, and it wasn't. And we wake up in the morning after getting camp kind of set up and everything, and pack up the horses again. and keep going. And there's an e-bike trail through the snow, through the middle of the night. And I want to know who that person was. So I mean, if you hear this, there's one track in the Wilmore. You know who you were.
That's crazy.
We were the people just ahead of you on the horse. Yeah, I don't like it's crazy. And like we were a long ways back there, and we went through some pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, are e-bikes considered a motor vehicle in Alberta? So like they can get inside closures? Or do you
I
guys
don't
know?
want to offend anybody with this, but they should be.
So BC, British Columbia, they're considered a motorized vehicle. So we
Yeah,
have
I
a
don't-
ton, we have a ton of road closures for hunting season. Like a lot of our Forest Service roads, you get down into the Kootenays and the mountains down in that area, and it's closed for motor vehicles. And you can ride it on mountain bikes, but not e-bikes.
I don't believe right now that that e-bikes are considered motorized.
I think
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it's implemented now or it's on the horizon. There is going to be a limit on the size of the e-bike that would, whether that's I don't know much about them. I've never really done much research on them, but I
They're
think
cool.
there is going to be some sort of limit in place. But I'm pretty sure there's not any consideration.
There has to be though. I mean, because
I think the only
bags on it, and they're going to
the
be
only limit that there is in order for the e-bike you have to be pedaling it. It can't just be
like a pedal assist.
Yeah, it's got to be
Mhm.
a pedal assist. I think that's the only thing.
I really like them.
Mhm.
We have some great companies that support us with their e-bikes. At our auction last year, I think we sold 4 of them, maybe 5 of them. They went really, really well. And the owner of that company actually bought a hunt that night as well. And so they're really cool. I love what they're able to do. I love the freedom that they actually give a lot of people who can get out and get more exercise and get out and get different places, and the further reach that you have and stuff like that. I think they're really awesome in what they can do.
Mhm.
I do think
I think they have their place, Paul. Like I look at my old man who's getting his hip replaced, and it's like, okay, so something like that is going to help him still get back there and be able to hunt sheep, in certain areas, right? So stuff like that, I could see it. But it's
a fine
interesting.
line. It's a very fine line.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we've got a couple of them, and we use them on logging roads and stuff. And it's pretty cool because honestly you see a lot more stuff, you hear things, you're right there. But the downside is if they break down or if you run out of charge. I mean, my bikes are 75 pounds each, and that's the last thing you need is another 75 pounds to push up a mountain. Right? So, but
See, that's what
they're
I've
great
always
until they're not.
You just feed them, take them to water. As long as nothing serious happens with them, then you can just even watch. You don't even have to look where you're going most of the time.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, guys, we're gonna finish up here with a couple questions for each of you guys, and I'm gonna start off with Matt. Matt, maybe you could tell us a little bit how you got into hunting. I was gonna ask if you've killed a ram, but it's pretty painfully obvious that you've killed a couple slammers at least. We can see them over your shoulder there, and are you gonna hunt sheep this year? So I kind of loaded you up with questions.
Yeah, been a hunter my whole life. I think my earliest memories are probably being in the bush. It's just a way of life for me and for my kids as well. We get out and we do a lot of trapping and a lot of hunting, into waterfowl hunting in the last few years because it's a damn good time, and 2, the kids love it.
That's great.
So, I would say that's been my big focus the last few years, is to get my kids out. My son and I went on our first sheep hunt together when he was 7. We had a fantastic time. We harvested a ewe, and we found a 10-year-old full curl deadhead on the stalk.
Wow.
So it was pretty rewarding for dad and son. The sheep over my shoulder are actually not my sheep. They are Wild Sheep Foundation sheep. that one that's a 209-inch ram. That one over my shoulder. So
In which case,
Wow.
Matt would be done sheep hunting.
I shoot for a little different category. I have harvested rams here in Alberta. I have yet to harvest a ram outside of Alberta, so I'm just in the only one club. But as far as sheep hunting this year, yeah, probably. I'll probably get out a few times, but where I go and how, when and where, I guess, is yet to be determined. Used to always go out for the opener, go deep, go get a few days early, and now it seems all the honey holes and hidey holes are full of people and a lot of inexperienced sheep hunters, which I guess isn't always a bad thing, but in past experiences led to not so many sheep in the valley. So.
Yeah, just we kind of refer to them in BC as the Skyline Club, right? When you get some of these guys that, right, they don't think about it. And, honestly, fantastic for, it's great to see them out there. And we're new sheep hunters too, Blake and I. You talk about hunting with kids. I've had my 3 out since they could walk as well. And, it's constant learning. And this is one of the main reasons we started Spike Camp too, was to really, provide a place for people to learn. So we might start a space on there, all about how not to skyline or something like that. I don't know, but
it's funny that you say
awesome.
that, because I've noticed that in a few areas, and people just kind of up there like walking around, stretching, popping up every hill. I'm just watching them like, oh.
So it's again, it's one of those dilemmas, right? Catch-22. You want to promote this activity that we love so much, but at the end of the day, it does put more people out in those spots. And I'm sure I know this answer. It's just getting harder and harder to get away from people in Alberta, because it's big country, but it's a lot of hunters, right?
I mean, you can go back. I've rode for a couple days back into places, and you run into people. And you're like, come on, like, really? But it just, it happens, and it's everybody's area, and it's everybody's forest, and they're everybody's sheep. So it's not like we're entitled to them any more than anybody else is, right? But it is one of those things where, I mean, hunting in general, and I feel especially sheep hunting has really gained a lot of publicity over the past few years. And it is that, number of hunters and versus number of rams, is it consistently sustainable? Like, no, it's not. If we have disease outbreaks, or if we have, a harsh winter, or if we have, people who are having extremely successful years, are those numbers sustainable for a long period of time? No. So I think that's one of the things that we have to be very cautious of and careful of, is, being selective and trying to teach people the importance of management behind it. It's more than just being a hunter. It's more than just going out and killing something. It's actually like, okay, why am I killing this? What am I doing with it? And how does it affect the direct, relationship with everything else around it? So I think responsible game management and responsible hunter harvesting and everything, we should be okay. I think there is a way, but it's going to have to work. It's going to take a little bit to work itself out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but we opened up the Sheep Camp series of segments with Bill Jecks from BC, who's he's in charge of all. He's the head guy for wild sheep and goats, and he did a great presentation. And everybody knows where to find that. And he talked about not so much on aging or things like that, but just making the right decision and why we need to make those decisions when it comes to sheep. In BC, we're lucky too. We've got over the counter for our stone sheep. We had this issue a few years back, not that long ago, where we had a tremendous amount of sheep that were seized because for a number of reasons, but the main one, the majority of them, was they were short. And so, that was, again, one of the reasons we pushed for this platform to get up, was to try to educate. So you're right. Just because there's a lot of hunters doesn't mean they're all good, but we want to try and make them better, and we want to make them conservationists while we're at it. Right. So anyway, so Mike, tell us your story. So, how'd you get into hunting? Have you killed a ram? And are you sheep hunting this year?
Let's go backwards. I am sheep hunting this year. I haven't killed the ram, and I can get back to that. I started hunting when, same as Matt. I can't even remember when I was. My dad hunted, my grandfather hunted. So yeah, my biggest thrill was when I turned, 14, got my dad's old Husqvarna 30-06, and got to start hunting moose and deer with that thing, and I hunted, deer and moose. I grew up kind of northern Alberta, north of Edmonton, and so there wasn't a whole lot of sheep hunting opportunities for me up there. But my uncle, there's that. But my uncle, who's ironically from Medicine Hat, but him and his buddies would go out every year to the mountains, and he was the one that got me into sheep hunting. And I actually just wrote this in my Meet the Director article for our magazine, the next issue. But when I was a kid, I was under the impression that Alberta Bighorns were, one, easy to kill, and two, all just monsters. Because every Christmas it'd be like, oh, here's my 180, and here's my buddy's 186, and the year after it's like, here's my 188, and it's like, man, sheep hunting in Alberta's easy. And then you grow up and start doing, it's like, whoa, yeah, not so much. So it was early 20s when I started hunting the mountains, when I finished college and stuff. And I haven't found my ram yet. I've let a lot walk that that were legal and could have been my ram. But I know Paul and I have talked a lot about this, but there's something to be said about taking a lot of pride. Any sheep on that wall you take a lot of pride in, but I know and understand and really feel strongly that age matters in rams, and I don't want I don't want my first ram to be a 5-year-old up there. I'll be honest. I want it to be an older ram that theoretically I'm affecting that sheep population in Alberta by taking that one animal. So the benefit of it keeps me out in the mountains every single year. As we mentioned earlier, you got to take a year off. You harvest one, and that's not a bad thing. It's a feather in your cap to have to take that year off. But no, I like getting out there every year, and I like just watching them. And this year, unlike any other, I'm going out and spend a lot of time sitting on the mountain, and napping on the mountain, glassing on the mountain, and watching sheep scurry around. Other than that, I've got a bird dog laying here. I enjoy my pheasant hunting as well, so that'll occupy a lot of my time this year too. But that's kind of my deal when it comes to my history and my sheep hunting.
Shit, I'm disconnected. Can you guys hear me? I had a bit of a blip there. Am I back
Yeah,
on?
we got you.
All right, cool. Right on. All right, Paul, tell us.
I'll be hunting.
I know you will.
I was actually a late bloomer hunting though. I grew up on a farm up kind of northwest of a little town called Good Fair, kind of by Grand Prairie. And so, I mean, family never really hunted much. We had guns in the house and we'd go out and shoot ducks and kind of stuff, but it wasn't really a thing until I moved to Hinton when I was around 8 years old. And people hunted here, and I was like, kind of interested because I came from a farm. I moved to a town. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I was like, this is terrible. I remember going to school and I was the only kid wearing, like Wranglers and boots. And everybody's looking at me and I'm looking at them like they're the weird ones. Like, what's going on here, right? And
Sure.
And so I kind of got into hunting then at a younger age, and but never really got into it. I didn't really get into hunting until I was probably 24. Before I actually I went on my first sheep trip. We packed into the Wilmore, and it almost killed me. And I was like, this is ridiculous. This isn't like any hunting I've ever done before, where you go out and sit in a deer stand or kind of cruise around in a pickup for a bit or whatever. Like it was, I did the typical call it hunting, And my first time actually hunting was like, okay, and that's when it kind of clicked that there was a lot more to this than what kind of meets the eye. And and then after that, I was hooked. It was the end of it. I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm in. And so now, I got a couple of kids myself and bringing them up. Same thing. My son and I shot our first deer together when he was 4 years old. And, we really enjoy that time going out, waterfowl hunting, like Matt said, and hoping to get him up in the mountains here once it's a little bit older, but he's doing real good. Maybe this year might be the first time. We'll see. But I'll be there. I'll be out there. I'll be hunting. You bet.
Cool. Awesome. Well, guys, this has been a blast. I'm going to put Matt as the president on the spot one more time, and then we're going to wrap it up and close it off. But Matt, I'm going to hand you the mic, and I'm just going to ask you a question. If there's one message that you want to deliver on as far as what Wild Sheep represent to you and to the rest of the Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta, what's your message to hunters that you'd like them to take with them into the mountains?
I would just say, like, enjoy every step, honestly. Like, that's what a sheep hunt is for me. I just spent a couple days last week out there, and I just I got trapped in a huge hailstorm, and it was me and my dog out underneath my Gore-Tex coat above the alpine, and I smiled the entire time. I did. So to me, it's not a hunt. It really isn't. We protect the wild sheep, but we're protecting that whole area out there. So that's what I would say is just when you're on your journey, think of the wild sheep, think of everybody that's stood in your place before you, and think of those that are going to stand behind you and treat it accordingly. I would say that. Well
said, my friend. I appreciate that, and I'm sure our listeners and membership do. And on behalf of the rest of the hunters out there, I just want to thank you guys for all the hard work you do. Unsung heroes doesn't even begin to describe the effort and time and work that goes into working on in these volunteer organizations. And the sheep are the ones that benefit more so than the hunters. And congratulations to you guys. And Blake and I are going to do everything we can to promote Wild Sheep Foundation Alberta, and we look forward to seeing you guys in person and shaking hands. And thank you very much for coming on tonight. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you guys again. Spike Camp's been a real nice kind of change from the typical social media platforms and the stuff that you see out there. It's nice there's an area that can focus, kind of strictly on one thing. So we really appreciate you guys and everything that you're doing and having us on and giving us the time and spreading the good word for us and all the other organizations as well. You guys are doing a real good job. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Awesome. We appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, be safe out there.
We will. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, boys.
Happy trails.